press conference yet for Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and DeAndre Jordan?
It does seem a little strange. I wonder if those guys just have other stuff going on. But yeah, it is a little bit strange.
Well, I mean, I get it. I don't think Kevin Durant wants to field questions about, getting hurt and, oh, you're coming back this year, and then Kyrie Irving getting asked, what went wrong in Boston? And DeAndre Jordan, talking about his meatless biscuits at Dunkin' Donuts that I do want to try. But a lot of these guys are in New York. DeAndre Jordan's here. Wilson Chandler's been working out at the team facility. Garrett Temple's been around. So they are here. But I'm not sure if Sean Marks is waiting. I mean, it doesn't bother me because I think it's smart, because you don't want these new players with high expectations to suddenly be fielding questions about what went wrong elsewhere. I want the focus to be on the future. But speaking of, Marcus Smart was on ESPN this morning, and he had a lot to say about Kyrie Irving. And you've heard reports out of Boston saying that Kyrie Irving was to blame and that he was the absolute scapegoat for what went wrong in Boston. First, Jackie McMullen, who's a columnist up there, defended him. And now Marcus Smart said, look, there were 5 guys there. Kyrie Irving is not the guy everyone's making him out to be. He was there for me.
Mm-hmm.
He helped me out. So it's nice to see Kyrie Irving kind of getting some positivity coming from his time in Boston, because everyone else has just been bashing him and saying, well, the Nets are getting a headache. I've been saying on the show for a couple of months now that this is Irving's last shot to save his reputation. If this doesn't work out in Brooklyn, he's toast. So I think he's going to be fine. But it is nice to see that Marcus Smart, who's I can't speak today, an enigmatic personality, kind of say something nice about Kyrie Irving, because this is a clean slate for him, Ben. But this is the last clean slate I think he's going to get in the NBA.
No, the thing that I've been saying for a little while now is that I really do feel like Kyrie Irving ended up sort of being the scapegoat for that Celtics team, because quite frankly, I think even if you look at that roster, there were a few other guys who have a pretty bad reputation. And the one that just jumped out to me, and I thought it was so funny that he's gotten a complete pass, even after something he did afterwards, is of course Marcus Morris, who we talked about, who basically just screwed over the Spurs. I mean, there's no really two ways about it. He he agreed to go there and then decided to renege, go backwards after they had traded a player to get him, and ends up on the Knicks. So I think there'll be some karmic justice there, because I don't think he's going to play a whole lot for that Knicks team. But I think there were a few other guys here, Jason, who really struggled, and who honestly had more to do with some of the struggles of this team than Irving did. And a few of the guys that really come to mind, Jason Tatum, he's defended Irving, but it does feel a bit like he had some issues. He didn't quite fit. Terry Rozier obviously was not happy with his role the whole season, really. And then a guy like Marcus Morris, who really, I mean, when you look at the numbers, just didn't pass the ball much at all. For a guy who shot as much as he did, he's just not much of a passer. I think that did not help this team one bit. So I feel like, to me, Irving kind of got a bad rap, and I talked about this last week, but I think this is a really good segue, Jason, to the segment we mentioned earlier, which is our best bets of the offseason, because, again, I think this week we're going to talk about the MVP bets, some guys who might be worth putting a few dollars on. One of the guys, to me, that's a great long shot bet is Kyrie Irving. I mean, imagine the Nets win 50 games with Kyrie Irving and no Kevin Durant. I mean, he's going to garner some serious MVP buzz if they're a top 4 seed, Jason. I mean, there's just no doubt about it.
I agree. I think he's got more work to do off the court, but hey, I mean, if he could shoulder the load, I know Karis LeVert's there, but if he can carry the team, play at an MVP level, then yeah, he should garner some votes. But the Nets aren't a championship contender this year. I think Irving could be a really stealthy MVP candidate next season with a healthy Kevin Durant while he's working his way back and Irving wants to shoulder the load. But there are too many other top players for Irving to sneak in the conversation. You have Kawhi Leonard. LeBron James is always in the conversation. You have 2 MVP candidates on the same team in Westbrook and Harden. Steph Curry without KD and Clay could absolutely go off. You have Giannis, you have Joel Embiid. So I don't think Irving falls into that top 5 or 6 in the MVP pecking order. But if you're a betting man, which I know I am, I'm going with a guy like Anthony Davis, because he's getting killed in the tabloids, on television about, he's made the playoffs once in 7 seasons, and this is the guy LeBron is banking on the back end of his prime to do well. Well, you know what? If Davis answers the bell and the Lakers actually get a top seed in the West with their borderline mediocre roster they've surrounded these two stars with, Anthony Davis should garner some serious MVP consideration based off LeBron being on the back nine, Davis in a fresh situation. They could all add up here.
Yeah, I think the best bet on the board is probably Davis. There's just he to me should be probably the favorite just based on situation. Him and Giannis are probably the two guys. The fact that LeBron is going to probably miss some games this season gives him a really good opportunity. So for me, my favorite bet on the board will be Davis, and my favorite long shot will be Irving because I think Irving. I think one of the things you didn't even touch on, Jason, but his injury history has been a big problem for him. And you wonder what he could do if he gets a healthy season. The most games he's ever played was 75 games, and then he had one other season where he played 72 and one of 71. So he's only played over 70 games 3 times in his career. Imagine if he stays healthy this year, if the Nets doctors get him to do that without anyone else on this team who's really going to demand the ball. Had his best rebounding season of his career, his best passing season of his career. Um, Honestly, his assist to turnover ratio was really excellent last year. So to me, I see him as a really good candidate if you want to take kind of a sleeper, or Anthony Davis as a favorite. Are there any other guys for you, Jason, that you feel like are maybe good value bets at this point?
Kawhi Leonard, I think as everyone's expecting him to be, he might be more of a favorite. So you're not going to win a ton of money on him. But I think a lot of people are nervous to bet on Kawhi as the MVP coming into the season with the Raptors because no one knew what to expect. He was coming off a season where he really wasn't around much, and he came right back into the hearts of NBA fans everywhere. But now playing in LA with the Clippers alongside Paul George, I think that gives him a chance to shine. I mean, you saw Paul George also as a stealth MVP candidate playing alongside Russell Westbrook, so I wouldn't be surprised if he garnered some votes. But basically, fans and listeners of Baseline Jumper, if you want to win money, go with Anthony Davis. If you want to lose money like Ben, then go for a guy like Kyrie.
Coming from a Nets fan, man. All right. Well, at any rate, Jason, before we wrap up today, let's do like the weather here. Let's heat it on up. We're not going to do any heroes and zeros over the offseason because honestly, folks, there's just, as Jason said to me earlier today, there's just not much heroic going on here. So instead, we're going to crank the heat up. We're gonna twist it up there, get into the sauna, and it is time for our heat check of the week. I'm on fire. Here's a heat check. Fireball. You don't like that. You don't like NBA basketball. Bang! Bang! And Jason, why don't you lead me off this week?
Well, we talked about some of the best available free agents, and I want to know. I'm going to pose this question to you and everyone out there in Baseline Jumperland. Will anybody sign Carmelo Anthony? This poor man has been exiled from the NBA, started the season in Houston, was traded to the Bulls, bought out. Not one contender thought about signing him. He's on the open market with all these other players. LeBron did not try and get him to LA. CP3 did not try and get to play with him again. This man has nowhere to go. And I understand it's a pride thing. He still thinks he's a starter. I think if he finally admits that he's a bench guy, then he'll get a call from an interested team. But the reason why my interest is heightened was because of a tweet Damian Lillard sent earlier this week saying that Melo deserves one farewell season. Now, it's not to say he can't play 2 or 3 more years, but he needs to accept the fact that he's no longer a top NBA player. And that's what I think his problem is. But, I mean, Ben, we talked about some of these other guys, former Knicks and Smith and Shumpert. Do you see a spot anywhere in the league for Carmelo Anthony? I mean, Golden State would be kind of interesting if he wants to, get some shots up on the wing until Clay comes back. But other than that, I mean, there really are no bona fide favorites. I was dead wrong. I thought both J.R. Smith and Melo would end up as Lakers, but Rob Pelinka had other plans.
Jason, are you a fan of music? Because I have a song for you. And Carmelo Anthony. Na 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 Hey, 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 goodbye.
Taco Tuesday. Oh, we're not doing a remake of that. Sorry,
Doing
I got carried away.
no Taco Tuesday remixes, but I will tell you, I think it's all over for Carmelo. I really don't see why any team is going to sign him because good teams don't need him. He's not a good enough defender or shooter at this stage of his career that he's really going to add. And then meanwhile, what rebuilding team really wants a guy that old to come in when he really hasn't been a great clubhouse influence? And I think that's the same challenge that a guy like J.R. Smith is going to face a little bit. I mean, I think he can contribute enough that a team will pick him up. But, if you don't have a good reputation as a veteran, these teams don't really want to bring you in with their young guys, and I think that's the problem that Carmelo faces. He's had some questionable quotes, hasn't had a great relationship with some of the coaches he's had. I mean, I don't see him coming back. I don't really see what team's going to be interested. So I think it's the end of the road for Mr. Anthony.
Wow, I never thought on my own take for the heat check that you would out heat me, Ben. But I respect it. I mean, I think Melo will be remembered more for his international play. He does have, you know, 3 Olympic gold medals. He did win a national championship in college. He just couldn't get over the hump in the NBA. He played in 1 Western Conference Finals and 1 Eastern Conference semifinal. Never really had success in the NBA, but nonetheless, he's a Hall of Famer. He'll go down as one of the greats. It's just a shame to see him go out like that. Dwayne Wade, as injury riddled as his career was, got to kind of go out on his own terms. Chris Bosh with the blood clots, the writing was kind of on the wall. Melo just got exiled by a league where he was on top of the world. I mean, do you remember his last season with the Knicks
Yeah.
when he had the bad knee, but he just wanted to be named to the All-Star team and then decided to be out for the season? I mean, that's like his lasting impression I have because he went to OKC, it didn't work out. Went to Houston, it really didn't work out, and now he's got nowhere to go. It's kind of sad.
I mean, the funny thing is, I don't know if you know this, Jason, but he was born in Red Hook in Brooklyn. The one team that you could make a case for, I'm not gonna lie, would be his hometown Brooklyn Nets, who could use a small ball four
No, they
and a
can't. They
three.
have 15 guaranteed contracts. There's nowhere
I'm
to put
just
them.
saying, if someone was to get injured, it wouldn't shock me if a team like the Nets decided to take him as a reclamation project. That's really the only team to me. It has to be a team that's kind of in the contention mix and really needs a wing. If, say, Torian Prince was to go down, the Nets would be in desperate need of a 3-4 type guy, a guy who could play small ball four. That's the type of team that could do it if there's an injury. But like I said, I really don't see him coming back. Um, on my side, I have a heat check as well. It's not about a guy who's retiring, but it's about two teams that are on the way up, in fact, Jason, and that's the two LA teams. And when ESPN did a survey, there was a clean sweep, Jason. Every single quote unquote expert has the Clippers as the favorite over the Lakers in the battle for LA. And I was kind of shocked to see this. I expected it to be pretty dead even. And I'm curious if you think the Lakers are getting overlooked because for me, I feel like as much as I'm a little bit down on the Lakers, and I actually feel like in the regular season, they might struggle a little more than people are expecting. It feels like this is a team that's really well suited for the playoffs, Jason. And it does make me wonder if people are sleeping on them a little at this point because quite frankly, I mean, they still have guys who, when they're on, are two of the top potentially 5 players in the league. They have a guy like Danny Green who really is excellent. When those guys are going to be playing the majority of the minutes, suddenly this team looks a heck of a lot better. Now, again, regular season, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much you really want to be playing Rajon Rondo. I'm not completely sold on Kyle Kuzma. I think they have a lot of sort of towards the end of the bench type guys. So I'm not sure how much you want to see those guys playing minutes. But Jason, are the Lakers getting slept on at this point?
No, they don't have nearly their complete roster the Clippers do. I know the Clippers could be a little weak at the 5. They're really banking on Harrell and Zubac, but just top to bottom, their point guard situation is way better. Patrick Beverly over guys like Rondo and Avery Bradley. They don't have enough shooting. Danny Green is good, but he was very streaky. I mean, he would have been replaced in the starting lineup by Fred Van Vliet if it weren't for Nick Nurse wanting to stay consistent. I think the Lakers waited too long and lost a lot of the B level free agents